Welcome to Built for This, the podcast where real estate meets real life skills. Hosted by Andrea Lane and Alyssa Bicar, each episode features investors turning their unique edge into long-term rental success.
Hello and welcome to the Built for This podcast. I am your co-host, Alyssa Bicar, the consultress, here with the one and only fearless real estate investor, Andrea Lane. We are bringing real estate investors who have personal and real-world career experience and bringing all of that to the table to have a successful real estate investment business. Andrea, who do we have for him today?
So today I'm excited to introduce you to Brian Biernat. Love the name. My son would love it more. Brian lives in Jacksonville, Mississippi, not Jacksonville, Florida. And Jackson. And he owns 8 single-family rentals and a multitude of other types of rentals, and he does notes as well. And I'm really looking forward to hearing more about his journey. But for now, Brian, why did you get into real estate investing?
So, like most people, an event or events kind of triggered our start. And to make it brief, in 2016, I was diagnosed with prostate cancer. I had it removed in March. I've been a, almost 10-year cancer survivor. Shortly after that, about 4 months later, my wife Amy she had the bike and she was cycling on the Natchez Trace and she got hit by a car. And so those two events kind of made us think, okay, God got us through it all. Okay, we start thinking about things. I was in telecom at the time for about 22, 23 years. I was an executive, did cellular networks, fiber networks, engineering and planning. And I too talk with my hands, but you can't see. But anyway, I didn't want to keep making moves to advance, and I didn't want to move around. So I said, Lord, I want this to be my last stop. Now, I had no idea we were going to get into real estate. We had no desire to get into real estate prior to this. So her and I started praying, started thinking, and we both kind of mutually came to real estate, started watching podcasts after podcast, YouTube video. And that was in 2016, 2017. We jumped in to wholesaling. We paid $5,000. We took a course with Wholesaling Inc., Tom Kroll. You may know that name. And we got into that, went to an event. We bought a couple of houses, sight unseen in Indianapolis. That might be another story for another time. At the end of the day,
sounds like it's a story for now. No, go ahead.
Well, okay, I can give you the short version. The short version is so there's a guy by the name of Clayton Morris who used to be on Fox News. And Clayton was wholesaling and he is doing turnkey rental markets in Jacksonville, Toledo, Indianapolis, and Cleveland. And we got on board. We've been researching him. I thought we did our due diligence. And we took a pension I had. Don't do that. You pay too much taxes. I didn't know about solo Ks at the time, but I took my pension. We bought these properties in Indianapolis, sight unseen, paid for the rehab, paid for the house. At the end of the day, it turned out to be an invaluable step in our real estate career because what it did was it forced us to go up there. It forced us to meet a guy by the name of Kevin Straub. I don't know if you know Kevin. And Kevin helped us create notes on 2 really bad houses that had turned into 2 really good houses. And then that led to my relationship with one of my mentors here, Walter Walford. And then it eventually connected me into Jim Ingersoll's circle. So I'd like to say it was a mistake, but I think it was just the path we had to go down, right?
Divine so it was intervention.
Yes.
And I think when most people get into investing where you came from, where it was something that was new and you went to a class and you thought you knew it and you thought you were doing it the right way. And, the best journey of the best part of a journey, which is hard to believe when you're in it, are the mistakes that are made because it grows you to the person you're able to grow bigger and better. So
you need a lot of, so my personal opinion, we're people of faith. You need to have faith. You need to have perseverance. You have to have a very high no quitness, right? So there was 2 moments when I got the email the day before my middle son's wedding in May of 2018, and they told me we don't know where the keys are. We don't have a property management company that we were promised. and we don't know the status of your houses. That's when I reached out on the internet. I contacted a guy who put me in touch with Kevin. We took action and went up there, and it all worked out. Unbeknownst to me, I was pretty devastated to think I'd put $100,000 into these, and I'm like, what have I done? And then I had another little pity party with a friend of mine, Stephen Westner, who's a pretty successful entrepreneur. We were in the Air Force together, and I called him up, and I was trying to boohoo, and he's like, brother, just look, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and be a man. He goes, look, consider it education.
That's
You
right.
just got, and I didn't really lose the money. We just got deferred on the payback.
There
Right?
you go.
So they were supposed to be turnkey rentals that would have been, free, 100%, minus our fees and holdbacks for maintenance. They were free and clear. And so instead of that, we created notes. One of the notes is already paid off. Another one's got another 14 years to go. So, and it pays for my vehicle. So, we learned a lot through that season.
Yeah, and
Wow.
that's a great story. I love hearing people's problems or obstacles because that's
Yeah.
what helps you grow. And you're absolutely right. If you don't stay in the game long enough, I know so many people, they buy a property and oh me, oh me, oh me, and they get out, oh, that doesn't work. No, you didn't work it. Um,
No.
it does. Well, and this is part of the problem, right? So many gurus are out there teaching, buy a property, you put a tenant in, and you start bringing cash in. Well, welcome to the real world. You buy a
Yeah.
property, you need to figure out how to stabilize it at whatever level it's at, and then you put a tenant in, and then you stabilize the tenant, and then maybe you start bringing in some cash flow. But people think they're going to get in. Oh, done. I'm rich. Ha.
Yeah, I have
Yeah.
a real problem with someone that's been in a certain particular area of the business for a year. Then all of a sudden they pop up on Facebook and they're this coach, and I'm like, wait a minute, you haven't gone through any challenges. Like, how are you going to coach somebody? Like, I coached sports all my life, baseball and football. I played it, and just because you played it doesn't mean you're going to be a good coach. Because I could go down that path that I want, but when you've done something and then you coach it, I mean, you've got some time in the game. Like, even most people would tell you, we only started in 2017. We never seen the 08, 09 market, right? What we're seeing now, everyone's saying, hey, you're starting to see this is not a real good time. And we've had our challenges this year as well. A lot of people have. And if you've never been in a bad market and you've only been in a good market, how are you going to coach somebody through that? How do you
I,
coach someone through the problems?
I 100% agree with you. I've been in long enough to see it up, down, sideways.
Yeah.
This is not, and I hate saying it's a bad market. It's really not. It's a
No,
change, right? There's
thank you.
so
That's
many
exactly right.
opportunities there. Your interest rate is higher, your price
Yep.
points are high. You can still find deals. And since people aren't buying because, oh, it's a bad market, it's a
Yep.
great market to find
You
deals.
know what? It's a bad market for you because you have to go to banks, but I have private money and I can go find deals, and I can give my investors a return, and I have a track record. That's why people lend me money, right? They don't
Yeah.
do it because I'm a great guy. They do it because I've got a track record. And I was amazed at how some of the people that have come to me have been watching me for 4 or 5 years to see, is this guy real? Because they wanted, you can't just, when I was in the W2 world as an executive, I interviewed people, and I didn't want to hear about their victories. Like, everyone gives you a resume full. I said, tell me about the losses. What did you learn from the loss? How did you recover? What did you learn from it? Tell me
Yeah.
that story, right? Because everyone thinks it's wrong in the corporate world. They think it's wrong to admit failure, but that's not true. You
No.
fail every day.
That's
Right.
that's the farthest thing from the truth, and that is
Yep.
honestly
That's exactly.
one of the main reasons why we have this conversation right here is because
Yeah.
what we think it takes, or what we've been programmed, or what the myth of marketing has taught us, is that you need
Right.
to be X, Y, or Z, and what we find in the process is like that's anything but true. You need to learn
Yeah.
from being in motion and being willing to make mistakes. Being afraid of failure is just going to keep you
Yeah.
stuck.
That's
So
exactly right.
the thing that we would love to ask here on the show is not only, why did you get in and what mistakes have you made? We also want to know, like, you said you were from Telecom and you kind of made this big pivot into real
Yeah,
estate investing and you've built a successful business doing it. So, what are some of those skills that you had pre-real estate that lend themselves really well to you in your real estate investment business? Like, can you give us some idea about what your
absolutely.
unfair advantage is?
Absolutely. So I was an engineer, but I was not your typical engineer. I was not formally educated. I had a 2-year degree. I learned through doing, not self-taught, but just, OJT, right?
Hmm.
And I had people tell me, well, you're not a real engineer. You don't have a degree. I'm like, well, okay, fine. I'm not a real engineer, but I'm doing engineering work and I'm getting paid like one. So you paid double what I paid. You paid triple for college what I paid. But
Yeah.
that path isn't open anymore, right? That path doesn't exist. So, and I told my boys that, but the biggest thing for me is I've always been good at building relationships. And my wife says you're a connector because you just naturally, you naturally can talk to people. You know how to, you find common ground. You immediately, and you know how to do that. And in the telecom world, I was good at building relationships with vendors and other carrier partners, but I really didn't get compensated directly for it. Now in this world, um, in our furnished housing business, I handle all the business development stuff. My wife's more the COO, but in the last 3 weeks, we've inked like 6, really nice insurance stays, and it's all because of proactive marketing that I send out, phone calls. It's not, you don't ever stop. Someone said to me, well, why do I need to do this to my house? It's full. I don't need to market. I said, no, you're wrong. We're always marketing. We never stop marketing. I said, the moment you take that attitude, you're dead. So probably that skill right there, just connecting, being a connector, building relationships, kind of came naturally for me. And I'm not perfect. I read a lot of books. You talk about obstacle. The Obstacles Away is a great book. I love the book, Winning the War in Your Mind. It's written by a pastor. I don't endorse him as a pastor, but it's a great book about mindset. But you have to overcome those things. You have to learn how to talk to people.
Yeah, so I loved your story because it so resonates with me. I didn't graduate college. I got married instead, and my husband died, and then I just went on to do other
Wow.
things. But I was fortunate because I learned. I've probably had more college courses than people who graduate, but it's all on what would help me grow to where I wanted to be. And I moved significantly up the platform in my company by and like you need a degree, you need a master's, I never had it. What I needed to know is learn what the job required, learn the people to talk to, and find out how I could get the job from them. And it's all about networking and understanding your business that you're in. And I don't think
Yep.
there's any business that's truer in than real estate.
I
Right.
think in my engineering career, I've also been a pretty good judge of talent, and I was always able to lead, and I was able to lead people and manage projects well. And I had a vision, and this time of the year when I was in the W-2 space, I'd take the last 2 weeks of the year off, and everybody hated it because I'd come back in January and have all these things they're going to do. And I literally had some people tell me one time, one guy actually had the audacity to tell me, I don't want to do what I did last year. I'm tired. I want to, because I'm not doing that. I'm like, what? What part of you're not doing it? I'm like, well, I'll tell you what. I said, once you other guys step out of the room, and we're going to have a little impromptu session right now. And I basically told him, I said, it's not, I said, being average is not on the docket. I said, you're either going to be your best, or I'll help you find another place to go. But I'm
There you
not going to
go.
put up, I'm not going to settle for it.
So,
So,
I love hearing your whole story because it resonates with me so well. But, right now, as you said, people say, oh, it's a terrible market and all this thing. What's been your biggest challenge or struggle lately?
about 2 years ago, we started getting into these turnkey rentals. I saw a need, and we kind of pivoted, and that's how I was able to uh, acquire, I'll say, capital, a lot of capital to do these projects. Through that experience, I had some rehabs that went over that didn't go so great. We've had a few. We got a few flips on the market that haven't sold. They're out there for 4 or 5 months. One of the things we did is we liked the co-living model. We learned about it back in 2022 at a real estate function, believe it or not, at a networking event, right? The day before the meetings. And we liked that model because it resonated with what we were doing on the furnished rental side. And yeah, I would say the word pivot, right? We pivoted. So the next year, as I was doing these turnkey rentals, Pete Fortunato was at the meeting, and he spoke for 2 hours. And if you know Pete, what does he tell you? Why would you want to sell a great house like that? And I don't know, it just kind of resonated with me. And we didn't own a lot of assets. And I'm like, I sat down with Amy and I said, we prayed about it. I said, we really need to buy some properties. We're buying these properties. We're fixing them nice. We're selling them to other investors. They're putting tenants in there. And these houses are houses that, we fix them right or we don't fix them. Like someone said to me once, just the other day, well, you can just do like a little bit. And I said, well, I don't understand that. Either you fix the house right or I don't buy it. Right? I don't understand well, we're just going to do well, I want to put 10,000 into it. I said, well, what does that buy you today? Does that paint the house? Does it give you floors? I said, you're not I said, I said, if you buy a house, fix it. And whether I'm keeping it, and my guys would say this to me, well, are you going to keep it or are you selling it? I said, assume I'm keeping all of them. We're going to do them all the same. We're going to do them well, or we're not going to do them.
There you go.
And so when I sell a property to somebody and my name's on it, I want them to know I'm not looking for one and done. I'm looking for repeat clients. I'm looking for endorsements, right? And if I'm keeping the house, like we're going through our first eviction. Now I have a property management company that handles that for me because we're focused elsewhere. But we're going through our first, and the house looks great. It's just got a bunch of junk in it that'll get cleaned out. And I'll send my cleaner over there for my furnished rental business, and they'll clean it up, and we'll get it rented out again. But I think, like you said it best, it's a changing market, and the word pivot needs to be in your vocabulary.
Yeah. So when I teach my students, I always say you have two exit strategies, never one. If you're going in to do a rehab, is rental your second? That's always mine, right? When the market like now is softening and it takes a little longer, my properties are good. I'm happy to rent them because I know when I went in, I was able to do it. I'm not keeping my properties on the market for months, right? So having that ability to pivot is so key, especially in a changing market. I think that's a great tip for everyone.
I agree. We have one right now that I think we're going to give it a couple more weeks. And if not, we're going to do a cash out refi, and we're going to probably turn it into another furnished rental.
Oof.
It's a great house.
Yeah.
So we know it from being in the green room with you before this, that not only do you have the long term, but you have furnished midterm and short terms, and a bunch of notes and JVs. So like you've diversified how you go about doing what it is that you're up to. What was the progression for you? It sounds like you got in and, like you said, rehab it like I'm going to keep it, like I'm going to own it. It's my brand stamp that it comes from quality. And I love that guides your business. How did you find your way into all of these different types of investments in real estate, so we can kind of get a lay of the land of how you progressed?
Great question. So when we started off wholesaling, and the art of finding off-market properties, right, is the definition from Tom Kroll, right? Find them off-market, deeply discounted. We started there. After about 10 months, we did our first deal. So nothing was easy. And then we did a bunch of deals because I went to a meetup locally to find a local mentor. I just felt like I needed someone local on the ground. And the guy's name is Randy Harris, great guy. In fact, we have a meetup tonight in Dealmaker Jackson. He'll be there. Amy and I host it. But anyway, so met him, got into all that, and then eventually we started. We got those two properties in Indianapolis, and then at the beginning of 19, I was listening to a Joe McCall podcast, and a guy by the name of Brian Page talking about how he was doing this Airbnb arbitrage thing with furnished properties, and his goal was $10,000 a month cash flow. And I listened to that podcast when I was running, and I used to run like a couple miles every morning. And I said, Amy, you got to hear this. And when she heard that, something went off in her. She's like, man, we could do this. And so like we had zero training, and I just met Walter, and he invited us to come meet Al Williamson. He was going to do this short-term rental event in Jackson in late April 2019. Well, we went out, and we had learned, we had listened to that podcast so much, we got enough nuggets that we went out and secured a few leases. Now I was feeling really big. I went out, got a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house in Belhaven, a very historical area. And I'm thinking, hey, we got our first one. And my wife calls me and says, hey, we're Saturday morning, 9 o'clock, we're meeting this guy Warren at his country club for breakfast. We're going to sign 3 leases for these duplexes he has. So right away, and you know, in every relationship, there's always a risk taker and a risk adverse. I'm the more risk adverse, and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. I'm like, wait a minute. I said, we got to pay for these things. You know, we got to, when's, you know, anyway, so that's how we started. And then we started into we went down the STR path for a while. And then in 20, I learned about trusts and how to buy and land trusts and, you know, IRAs and inherited IRAs and solo pays. And I thought, well, you know what, it would be good to, you know, HSAs. So we started going down that road, and we started doing, in 20, I took another course from Walter locally, and we built up about, I don't know, 6 or 7 seller finance deals where, you know, I'd have a JV partner like yourself, Alyssa, and, you know, you'd put up most of the cash. I'd put up some of my IRA, and then, you know, I'd give you the bulk of the note every month. And they've been performing for pretty well. You know, we had a few hiccups here and there, but we're dealing with it. But, and then after that, we kept doing the furnished thing. And then I'd say probably and then of course, 22, we heard about the co-living, and I started in 23. I started, you know, getting phone calls from people. Hey, I got this house for sale. And that really got me thinking about the turnkey, you know, the turnkey rental. I bought one in a pretty good area in South Jackson, and I actually listed it, and another investor bought it. And I was like, wow, we made like, you know, 25 grand on that deal. I'm like, you know, there's a market for this. And so as I started doing these projects, I just go out on Facebook and video our projects, right? Hey, we started this one on the 1st, and we got it done by the 15th, like bought it, closed on it, fixed it. Like it's ready on the 15th for someone to buy it and go. And we were doing like 3 or 4 of these a month, and we just kept rolling, and people kept reaching out saying, hey, I want to, you know, I had a list of buyers, and mostly out-of-state guys and gals. And we started buying and fixing and selling these houses. And so our progression really was wholesaling, you know, the lifeblood, right? How to find deals, right? And then it was short-term rentals. Then it was notes. And then we got into more, and we done a couple of flips in between there too. And then we got into more turnkey stuff. And then we started holding properties, you know. So we need to have some assets. Pete Fortunato, we got to have some assets.
That's
and
right.
so that's where we're at now. We're in a position of, you know, we're not advertising that we're taking on any more investors to host or performance manage any short-term or long or mid-term rentals. But, you know, we're getting some opportunities, and we're kind of cherry picking, but we're really focused on buying, holding, and we're going to do less. We're going to do better quality deals in better areas, and less of them. We don't need to do as many, right? And so one thing I learned this year is, you know, there's a point where, you know, we had too many going, and it's like, okay, you know, things got a little tight, and so I was like, lesson learned.
Oh,
I hope I
man.
answered your question.
You totally did. You answered like 6 questions in your trajectory there. I'm like,
okay.
got you. Wholesale, learn the basics. Yes, high five. Then, you know, learning all the different nuanced places. Some people don't understand that real estate investments have a plethora of ways to be involved. And you just showcased and shared with us how sometimes you can move through from wholesaling to flipping, because oftentimes people get in their heads, I need to flip, but I don't have any carpentry or, you know, construction experience, or I need to wholesale, but I don't have the time. So what you've shared with us here is it's painting the picture of the meandering path, that there's no one straight line to success in real estate investing. There is what you're good at, who you know, and then how you can provide value and find ways to create value for others. And it's showcased, the quality is showcased all along your journey. And thank you for sharing your wins too, because it's important to remember, like, it's not all horror stories and bruising your knees and
No.
back up again. It is sometimes a delightful surprise, but not to expect those things, but to be humble and grateful when they do show up. So I want to thank you for being here with us on this podcast. It's been an amazing conversation today. How can people
Thank you.
connect with you and find you and continue this conversation? Where should they?
So they can, well, so I'm on Facebook, Brian Biernat. I'm on Facebook, my personal page. Our two websites, we have Convenient Corporate Housing is our furnished rental website, convenientcorporatehousing.com. And then BiernatInvestments.com is kind of our, I'll call it our parent LLC, where we do all our acquisitions in. I'm also part of Sunrisers. I'm part of Inner Circle with Jim Ingersoll. I'm in the Dealmaker family. So, yeah. And we have, we're not going to release anything just yet, but we are looking at doing something in 2026 that we haven't fully baked, but we're thinking about getting into. So we'll share more on that later. But for the most part, this has been a transition. This has been a tough year in some ways, but it's also been a little bit of a change in some of our business practices. We hired our first bookkeeper. We're changing our accountant and tax planner strategy. So, really kind of cutting open the wound, ripping off the Band-Aid and, fixing a few things too, right?
There you go. I love it. So thank you so much for sharing your story,
You're
your
most
wisdom.
welcome.
And, we are looking forward to continuing to share your story and your message here. The Built for This podcast is built for real people who are really making strides to build a real estate investment business. And thank you for being one of the best conversations we've ever had here. And so if you're
Praise the
listening
Lord.
to
Thank you.
this, yeah, man, high five. If you're listening
There
to
you
this
go.
on the broadcast, we will be right back with another amazing guest, just like Brian here. So don't go away. Stay tuned, and we will see you next time.
This wraps another episode of Built for This. If you're a real estate investor with a unique edge, apply to join us at builtforthisshow.com/guest.